Hi, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Coaching Call podcast. On this podcast, we'll cover various types of coaching by trainers in sports, martial arts, fitness, and business. We'll discuss each coach's methods to getting the most out of their respective athletes or clients and how they attempt to change the platform in which they coach. Join us on a fun adventure as we discuss unique coaching styles. Coaching is a universal part of how we get others to get something done. Join your host, Raphael, and his guests on this unique journey in coaching.
Hi, I'm Sifu Raphael, and this is the Coaching Call podcast. If you enjoy this episode, please subscribe and leave a review. This episode was made possible by listeners like you. Wow, good morning, Jeremy. Thank you so much for joining me on Coaching Call. How are you today?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. So we have a lot to talk about, don't we?
I think we do.
One of the things that I was reading your bio, and it definitely intrigued me because you and I have similar upbringing, maybe in different areas of the world, but you're one of 10 kids.
Yeah, I'm the youngest.
Are you?
Yep.
I'm number 10 of 12.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It's rare that someone can outdo me in that area.
Yeah. So tell me, how was it growing up for you? Who would you say was your biggest influence as one of 10, especially the youngest?
It's kind of interesting. People would always ask, they say, what's it like growing up as the youngest of 10? And I was the youngest, so I didn't know any different. But I wouldn't say that there's any one. We really kind of had our own village, our own community. So a lot of people are influenced by their friends and teachers and that sort of thing. I was influenced by the whole village in my home.
Nice. If you had to pick one person in that village that truly made that impact for you, who would that be?
My mom, and she ran that household. So
nice.
she did an amazing job of letting us all be creative and expressive and freedom to grow and do what we need to do. But on the important things, she ruled, and there was no questioning her rule.
I love it. Strong woman.
Yep, very
Love
strong.
Love it. In our lifetime and in our world, there's so many strong women. And when we think about business, when we think about all these different things, I am so happy that they now have more of a voice than they did back in the day. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things that they bring to every situation that,
without a doubt,
we'd be missing if they weren't there.
Yeah. So let's talk about, what even made you decide to go into a business venture, if you will, because you worked with Fortune 500 companies, right? Tell us about, even before you get to that point, what even interested you in business? Because as a young adult, we have so many different choices that we can choose from, or some are thrown at us and some we choose. So how was your story?
I was always a math and science kid, so I really liked that. And when I went to college for mechanical engineering. But while I was working as a supervisor, they put us through a Myers-Briggs class. It was a 3-day class, and it affected me and influenced me so much that I then started studying psychology in school as well.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, and engineering and psychology was such a odd combination that people would interview me, and I would always ask, why did you choose me to interview? And they said, we just wanted to see who would do that.
Right. So Myers-Briggs, you took that class. It influenced you. It made you select something that you probably didn't even think about prior to that, right?
Yep.
So from that position, from that point, from that moment, would you say that changed your whole trajectory?
To a degree, yeah. It really helped me understand just how different people are.
Mm.
how they take information in completely differently. And the examples that she gave in that class were so dramatic. She would really point out the fact that sometimes it seems like people are choosing not to listen to you or
Mhm.
choosing to be difficult, but she really was able to show that just the way people view the world is so different. And
Mm.
if you can step back and try to really understand their point of view, then communication just gets so much easier.
Nice, nice. You know, when we give people the chance to speak, right? When we actually listen, I teach because I teach martial arts.
Hmm.
I teach kids all the way from 3 and up, and even adults, right? I have adults older than you and myself who I teach. But one of the things that I always tell them is, communication is also listening, but also hearing what the other person is saying, not just like blah, 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 but also understanding, right? Understanding what they're saying and asking for clarity when you don't know or don't understand the meaning of what they're trying to accomplish, right?
And yeah, I always will ask people questions. And I think it's so rare that sometimes they think I'm trying to trick them. I say,
Yes.
no, I'm really just trying to understand what you said. But it takes convincing of them.
Mm,
And on the
mm,
flip side, sometimes I'll say something and I'm pretty clear on the fact that they didn't hear the intention of what I said.
right.
And I will ask them to tell me what they think I just said.
Mm,
And you have to couch that pretty carefully in the way you say it so it doesn't sound aggressive.
yeah,
But then
right.
they'll tell me what they think I meant, and then it gets us both on the same page. And
Yeah,
yeah, active listening is a tough but important skill.
it is. It's like that telephone game, right?
Yeah, right.
So you went into psychology, right? To understand how we all think so differently.
Hmm.
Even though, listen, you can have twins and they're totally different, right? So what made you go deeper into the business aspects?
Um, I really like. I guess it's the challenge of it. So
Mm,
the business just incorporates everything. It
mhm,
incorporates, the ideas that you have and the
right,
execution of ideas, the engineering part of just the process and executing something well, but then also the interaction, dealing with your managers or your boss and dealing with your peers, dealing with clients. So I think business really incorporates everything, especially once you get into some sort of sales type role,
mhm.
or as an entrepreneur, everyone's a salesperson,
Oh, yeah.
uh, and it just incorporates everything. So it's the most fun.
It is. You said as an entrepreneur, but a lot of people who work for a company or corporation or small business, they don't realize that even though they may not be in the sales position, they still have to sell themselves, right?
Hmm.
Right. Listen, if you ask a girl on a date or a boy on a date, you still have to sell yourself, don't you?
Absolutely.
So we are all salespeople. We just don't want to admit it,
Right.
right? I wonder, is it because of that old cliche that salespeople are slimy and you know they're looking out for themselves and not for you?
Yeah. It's funny. I taught a class to a environmental engineering group on sales. And the
Mm,
first thing that I spent the most time on was the fact that sales is okay.
yeah, right,
And you just have to reposition it because everyone thinks of, the classic idea of the used car salesman.
right.
I s- and then I would ask them, I say, is what you're offering really valuable? And they went on and on about how great it was. I said, well, aren't you doing your prospects a disservice by
Mm,
not letting them know how excellent it is?
right,
And once I got them to start changing their mind that they were helping people by doing this, you don't have to be a pushy salesperson. You
right.
just have to be a person who lets them know what is available. So
Yeah.
a lot of it's a mindset.
Wow. Thank you for saying that because it is mindset, right? It's that shift of, you know, what is a salesman? What's a saleswoman, right? was a salesperson nowadays, depends on how you say it, who they,
The
what,
sales
me,
entity.
they.
Yep.
So it's that perception, right? It's that mindset of not trying to convince someone, but showing them that maybe they're on the path and this is just the next step for your journey, right?
Hmm.
Maybe you want this product because it's going to help you. So all these different things. And so this is why I love business. I love sales so much because it allows us to help someone.
Hmm.
That's the only reason I think sales are important. Because if we can give someone a benefit with what we're offering, yeah, I mean, if we're selling something and it's going to hurt somebody, then yeah, we're not doing them a service, right?
Yep.
But if we're doing them a service, then by all means, we should be passionate about it, right?
You know what? A way that I helped myself change my mindset. Back in my early days, I was doing a lot of cold calls,
Mm.
and you get a lot of no's.
Oh yeah.
Um, and what I started thinking of a win, when you get so many no's, you're
Right.
getting very few wins. But I changed my mind on what a win was. And a win was if a person that I talked to had a good solution.
Mm.
So if they already had someone, I count that for me as a win because they've got a good solution. It's not my solution, but they've got something.
Right.
And once you start thinking about your goal is to get them a good solution, and it doesn't matter if it's from you or someone else, then you just it reframes it. You don't push in the same way, and you're really just trying to help them.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny you say that because I used to work for a real estate company, and one of the first things I had to do was cold call. And you have to call everybody. You're selling your home, you're selling your home, you're selling your home, you're selling your home. And with that, you're going to get 1,000 before one person goes, I'm thinking about it. But it's that, and for me, it was just like, I made it a game. It's
Hmm.
almost like there's going to be one person out of 1,000 that's going to go, maybe. And then that maybe can turn into, yeah, actually, I was thinking about it. And so when you think of it as a salesperson is a numbers game, right? And because not we can't please everybody, right? If unless you're a people pleaser, and you're going to be an unhappy person if you're a people pleaser. I
Right.
always say that. But and I know we're going into the topic of sales, but I think that is really how we can think of business, right? Because in business, if you don't have sales, then what kind of business are you in?
Right. What do you have?
So you got more interested in the sales, or should I say the business aspects of business.
Hmm.
What was that moment, or what was that first job that you had?
Um, I am very introverted, and I've always been in very customer-facing roles.
Mm,
The That first Myers-Briggs was because I was a supervisor at an amusement park,
mm.
so I was interacting with people all day long,
Oh yeah.
and that is sales. And then my first role out of college was doing inside sales at a IT company. So that's when I started, and they were only hiring engineers to be in sales roles, which is
Really?
pretty remarkable that they were able to do that.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Because you needed to understand what you were selling, right?
right. And it just having an engineering degree just gives you credibility with technical people.
Without a doubt. You know, the worst thing is to have somebody. But actually, my son did this. My son was a sneaker fanatic. So he went to the store and he asked them about the latest sneaker. And the guy said, oh, yeah, he started telling him all these things. And my son's like, wait a minute, what you're saying is not true. This, that, and the other. And the guy was like floored. He's like, how do you know so much about sneakers? And I think the manager heard him. He goes, hey, you want a job? And my son
Nice.
was like, no. But it's having the understanding of the product or even the business of what we're selling, right? And like I said earlier, we are selling ourselves, or we're selling a product, or we're selling something mostly every day. Isn't that the case?
Yeah, in one way or the other, whether it's business or your personal life.
Yeah, yeah.
Trying to get out of a speeding ticket, it's all sales.
Hopefully you don't get caught in too many of those.
I don't. Luckily, knock on wood.
Yeah, there you go. So you worked for a Fortune 500 company. Tell us about that and what were you doing?
Um, I did a couple of different things. One of them was building partnerships with large IT companies, mostly on the West Coast, like Cisco networking and
Mm,
those types of companies. So that was finding creative ways to meet in the middle. So,
mm,
what is a thing that will benefit us and benefit you equally? So, it took a great understanding of their business as well as ours to figure out, this is what they need.
right.
And these are the things that we can provide. And maybe sometimes you had to pull in a third company to really round it out. But I really like that understanding of what their need is and peel that onion so that we can figure out a way to get there.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny that you say understanding what their need is. When a lot of companies, even now, don't really understand what their need truly is. Have you found that even with certain, even corporations or anything like that?
You mean they don't understand what their customers' needs are, or they don't understand their own needs?
Both.
Yeah, in both cases, yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
What would you say was one of the biggest, without naming anybody, that you found is like, wow, they don't understand this concept. Let me help them along.
It's, the one interesting thing is that you say that a corporation doesn't understand, but
Mm,
sometimes it's groups within the corporation don't necessarily understand what their bosses want or their, CEO wants.
hmm
And there's one time doing that partnership when they were really focused on the work that it would bring and that it wouldn't bring too much money. I said, but here's how it's actually going to affect your stock price.
mm,
Here's how it can affect your bottom line, your margins, and if your stock price goes up one tick because of your earnings increase, that's a huge win for a lot of people. And it never occurred to them that for the CEO, that's really what mattered.
oh yeah.
So is helping them figure out how they can help their company and their own position within it.
Oh yeah. I mean, let's think about so many companies that are no longer with us, right? Let's
Yep.
think about Blockbuster,
Yeah.
right? Um, and when we think about like even some car companies, I remember that there was even a movie about the car that I think it was Jeff Bridges who played in the movie where he had devised that the headlights kind of turned where the car turned, right? I think that
Hmm.
was that was the movie. And but that company is no longer around. And there's even companies where they had the rear wheels turning when they and now they're starting to come back, but those companies are no longer around, right? So what is it about a company? Is it the visionary? Is it the head of the company? They're not listening even to their own employees?
Um, some of it comes back to sales. I'll tell you, I do coaching at a company that's largely engineers,
Mm.
and one of the things I have to just really repeat to them almost every week is that it's not the best idea that wins. It's the good idea that is presented correctly.
Right.
So they may have the best widget,
Mhm.
but if you're not telling people why it's a benefit to them, they're not gonna buy it. Having a car where the headlights turn left is fun, but if they don't know that it can save their life potentially because it's going to reduce accidents,
Right.
then it's useless.
Yeah, yeah. It's how it's presented too, right? Is what you're saying?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. So when we think of business, there's so many different facets that go into it, right? Because a lot of even entrepreneurs, you can't really have a business if you're up in a mountain and nobody knows about you, or in a
Mm-hmm.
cave, right? It's that communication, it's that marketing, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's getting your message out there. The more people that know about you, the better off you are.
The more often the right people know about you,
There you go.
because yeah,
Yes, thank you for clarifying. Well,
because
there are fanatics now, right? Look at when you put companies against each other. Look at iPhone
mm-hmm.
and the Droid phone, or the Samsung, or any of those, right?
Yep.
There are people who line up, and we know this, for days before a new phone comes out. And they do it every year, just about now. And I had someone say to me recently, why does iPhone not make anything else? Why do they keep making the same thing over and over and over again? And it's just a slightly different version. Why don't they come up with something that's going to change our world for real? But does Apple believe that they're making a difference in the world compared to what this person said that they don't believe they are?
It's funny that you said, why don't they do something that changes the world or changes the way we live our world? The smartphones have
Oh,
absolutely
yeah, without a doubt.
changed the world.
Entirely.
And so that's a funny question, but we have what's the equivalent of a supercomputer in our pocket at all times now.
Mhm.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I did a show earlier today. I have a new show called New Tip Daily, and I even showed how you can communicate with your family members. And I held up my phone and said, you can do a video and you can send it. And it's just a hello, I miss you kind of deal. But we couldn't do that 30 years ago.
No.
Not at all, right? And if we even wanted to do a show like the one we're doing right now, we'd have to be in a studio. You may have to be in a studio. I would have to be in a studio. We're doing it from, I'm in my office, you're in your home. Easy
Yep.
peasy, right? So the business of technology has really, my gosh, it's taken over a little bit, right?
Yeah. So it's it's a great thing until it's not.
Well, a lot of people, what I'm hearing, are going to be hunched back, right? Because they're always down like this,
Yep.
looking at their phones. And tell me you haven't seen a thousand videos of people crashing into things because they're watching their phones, or falling into a hole, or even texting while driving. And I've seen one where a woman is texting, the next minute she's flying upside down because she crashed. So we need to use technology the right way.
And there are a lot of ways that it can bring us closer.
Hmm.
And COVID was a great accelerator of that
Oh, without a doubt.
because, I'm one of 10 kids and we're spread out throughout the country.
Hmm.
And we used to get together for family reunions, hopefully once a year. But then when everyone was on Zoom, then we started realizing that we can have a video family reunion every other week.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
when
pretty cool.
when you can use it correctly, it's fantastic. But
Oh, yeah. Well, I did, with my black belts, I did a coffee with Sifu.
nice.
So every Saturday morning, we'd sit down and just have a conversation. And then that evening, for my other adults, I would have a cocktail party. And we'd all get a cocktail. And I'm not much of a drinker, but I would just be there and just socializing, right? It was a way to get people to interact, because we
Hmm.
lost that possibility. We could not get together, but we can get together now. So why still can we still use it?
Yeah, and I think there's a definitely a time and a place for it. I just published a book about being the youngest of kids, and I was looking through the stories, and there's one about in a thunderstorm we lost power, And
Mm,
I loved when we had thunder and lightning storms and would lose power
right.
because we all then got, pushed together into a small room with nothing to distract us. And we
Mhm.
had the best time. We would tell stories and we would make up poems together. But it's amazing when, even back then, when there wasn't all the cell phones and gadgets, even then, when the power came back on, we would still disperse and someone would watch TV and there'd
Yeah,
be
right.
other things to do. So, finding a time when you can just say, there's going to be no technology and we're just going to be together is a wonderful thing.
It is, it is. So, what's the best way that you would say using technology for business has made an impact on business?
I, well, going back to the pandemic, I think
Mhm.
people figured out how we can do things remotely, which made a lot of things much more efficient. So, I have to do a lot of contracts and people sign things, and using DocuSign can get that done in 5 minutes versus each person having to drive an hour to sit down
Mhm.
and look at things. So, when it can make things more efficient so that you're not wasting time, that's a wonderful thing. When
Yeah.
you're using it as a way to avoid actual personal interaction, that's not good.
No, not at all. I went to a meeting. It was a 4-hour drive for a 2-hour meeting, and then 4 hours back. Man, we should have done it on Zoom. We should have done it on Zoom. But you know what? I learned my lesson. So whenever that is going to happen again, I'm going to either bow out or suggest that they can have the meeting there, but let me zoom me in, right?
Yep.
Or any other method. You know, there's because of the pandemic, so much more business was created, and then so much more business was hurt
Hmm.
because of it. Because people did not understand the concept. They didn't, really dive deep into how can this help my business, right? Because for the restaurants that stayed open, they realized, hey, you know what? We can have people order online instead of having to come, and we can deliver to them or even have DoorDash or all these other services. But unfortunately, a lot of good restaurants closed down because they didn't see that part. They didn't understand that, hey, you know what? Maybe we don't have people coming into our restaurant, but why don't we go to their homes? Why don't we hire a couple of more people who are out of jobs anyway because they lost their job to a place that they had to be, or take the people that we have who are waiters and busboys and bus girls or whatnot, and say to them, hey, if you have a car, you have a job still, instead of firing them, right?
Hmm.
So it was another way for them maybe to even make more money.
Oh, yeah. A lot of them did much better than they would have done without the pandemic.
Yeah, yeah.
You
And
know,
then some didn't, you know.
right.
So
Um, Going back to your example about driving to that meeting,
mm,
I've seen the opposite happen where I was coaching someone and I'm always trying to get them to be more efficient.
yes.
And um, he came in and he was apologizing. He said, someone had a question. They sent me an email, and rather than respond to the email, I actually walked over to them and talked to him, and it ended up taking me 20 minutes.
Mm,
So I asked why he did it, and the answer was because through email they would have gone back and
right.
forth and misunderstood each other. I said, you saved yourself a ton of time.
Oh yeah.
So sometimes not using a text or an email or even phone and going and doing it in person is actually, it's an investment of time. So you're saving by doing it up front, so there's no miscommunication, because it's so easy to miscommunicate, just on the phone, never mind email and oof,
Yeah.
text. You just
Yeah.
have to be so careful.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I would have loved to have that that 2 hour meeting be a 8 hour meeting because it took me 10 hours to facilitate that. So
Right.
I would have still cut 2 hours out. But here's the thing, right? When we think about the way we use technology, right? We also have to be careful, right? Especially in business, because, you have all these people in different countries who are trying to infiltrate, right? Through our communication systems, through our listen, even hospitals have been held ransom because someone was smart enough to infiltrate, and unfortunately there were criminals who went into it, right? So what avenues does a corporation or a company have to imply now or employ in order to stay safe with technology?
That's not really my
No, I
field.
know it's not, but I just want to
Um,
talk about it.
yeah, so the two things I do are business coaching and then retirement coaching, and that has to do a lot with financial management.
Mm,
So all of our stuff has to be very, very secure.
right.
And the biggest thing that we do, and I guess it's what all corporations have to do, is just have a plan. A lot of small businesses don't have a plan. They'll just do this or do that.
Mm,
But if you sit down ahead of time and say, here's all the places where we're vulnerable, and here's what we can do, or here's what we need to outsource to do.
right.
So we outsource because
Nice.
it's far too important for us to try and pretend we know what we're doing.
Right.
So we get an expert to come in, and it costs us money, but again, it's not an expense; it's an investment because it's saving us.
I love that you said that. Let's go ahead and talk about that investment, right? And that even creating SOPs, right? Standard operating procedures, and even, I've seen where people have a book of standard operating procedures. Meanwhile, it's collecting dust
Right.
because nobody really looks at it.
Yep.
What would you say would be a better way for someone to create standard operating procedures so they don't have to hand, hold someone's hand every single, for example, if I have a new employee, man, is it going to take me 200 hours to train them? Meanwhile, is there a better way, right? So, do you have an understanding of how that can help someone?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with process and automation. So
Hmm.
you can write a procedure.
Right.
No one's going to read the procedure.
Correct.
So you need to write the procedure, and then you need to enact it so that it happens whether, someone wants to or not. If the process is you need to go into, a system that's been built, then the system is going to basically push that procedure on them. So
Mhm.
if you automate it to a degree or enforce it as a requirement, then that goes a long way rather than just putting it on the shelf.
Yeah. One of the things that I do is I do video. So, and then everybody can go through the video. What do I do here? What do I do there? Boom,
Hmm.
there's a video for that. So I think that helps a lot of my employees understand that this is how we do things.
Yep.
Instead of me having to sit there and teach them over and over and over again,
Yep.
because it makes it so if they've watched a video and they still have questions, it tells me two things. Either they didn't pay attention or I did not give them all the answers they were looking for. So
Yep.
maybe that video is outdated, right? So maybe I got to redo the video. But here's the thing. I don't need expensive equipment. It's in my hand. I can create a video and it can be a quick video, right? It
Yep.
can be a video of even like, hey, Johnny, you're doing that? Let me videotape while you're doing that because, when I hire somebody else, I'm not replacing you. I just want them to be able to help you do that,
Yep.
right? So,
And I know some physical therapists, and there's some things that they have so many people do that they then videotape themselves doing it,
mm,
and they'll send it out, and I'll ask, that's kind of what you get paid for, and you're giving it out for free. And they say it helps so many people, and they still need help with other things.
Mhm.
So for short things, it's such a great way to be able to share knowledge.
Yeah. I post every single day. I post a workout every single day. I have a workout program that I do well, I'm having another one starting soon, and I'm almost sold out, where it's 7 weeks, 7 days a week. So it's 49 days straight.
Nice.
And it's so much fun. I love doing it. But every day I still post a video every day. So today was 6 minutes. I start with Monday, 3 minutes. I'm sorry, Sunday, 3 minutes. Monday, four, all the way till Friday to gets to 9 minutes. And I've always worked out every single day, but I really used to post every so often. At the beginning of this year, I said, I'm going to post every day. I'm on day 333.
Nice. Good work.
So, but people say to me, why are you constantly, I go on vacation, or even if I go on a business trip, I still post, and people go, why are you doing it? I said, because if I can help one person, that's it. That whole thing is worth it.
Yep.
I can help one person. And then they're like, but you're giving it away for free. I'm like, good. I said, listen, if I hoard it, no one will benefit. And if I only sell it, a few will benefit. But the more that benefit, man, I am doing my part to help make this world just that little bit better, that bit healthier, right?
Yep. I've got a mission statement for my life. So this is from the old Stephen Covey,
Nice.
and it's as simple as can be. It's have fun, be the best I can be, and make the world a better place. And when people hear it, they think, make the world a better place. What are you going to do? Start your own charity or do this or that? I said, no, if I can just do a little thing to help someone, like make their day, then they're going to be nicer to someone else. And
Right.
a whole bunch of little things can go a long way to make the world better.
There's that ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
You help one person who maybe didn't expect your help, and then later on they'll see someone and they'll go, maybe I'll help them too.
Yeah. Pay it
And
forward.
then it can, yeah, without even realizing it, even,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it is that paying it forward, because we do live in a world that's ever changing, that is growing, whether we like it or not. Listen, the amount of people that live in this world is a lot bigger than it was 40 years ago,
Oh, yeah.
right? Or even maybe 10 years ago. We keep growing, but do we have the space for everybody? I think this is why Musk is wanting to create all these things so we can go explore other planets, right?
For just in case.
Just in case we overrun it, right?
Right.
And one of the things when we think about business, how do we run our business in comparison to how do we run our life? I'm asking you that question.
Um, for me, and again, when I'm coaching people, I have all of my clients do a personal mission statement.
Mm,
And I can't tell you how hard they struggle with that
I know.
because they've never thought they're just on a wheel and they just keep going and they don't see the point of it. And I'm like, just humor me and do it. And they come up with that and I say, now, how does your business help you achieve that mission? And sometimes you just see a click and it
Mm,
changes the way they position their business or how they focus their business because if they own their own business, it should be a vehicle to help them accomplish their life goals.
right.
And whatever the life goals are, if that can be incorporated into how the business is created and how it runs, then that's really tying the two things together, and it makes for much happier business people.
Without a doubt. We are talking about business, but let's talk about people who are married to their
Mhm.
business and don't take time for their family. And usually, and I just had somebody tell me this the other day. Yeah, everybody that I know who has retired has died shortly after. That's what they said to me. I'm never retiring. And I said, wait a minute. Is that the only reason you're working? Or you're working because you enjoy your job?
Right.
So,
I in retirement coaching, when people say, I want to retire at such and such an age, I say, great. What are you going to do then?
mm,
And they say, I'm going to golf. I'm like, no, you're not. You're not going to golf 8 hours a day, 5 days
right,
a
right.
week. You work very hard right now. You're always on the go. Once you stop being on the go, what are you going to do?
Hmm.
And that goes back to the person's mission in life. And
Yeah,
if they can use retirement as a time when they can do the other things they want, that's great. And what I always tell people is the goal is not to retire. Your goal is to be able to retire.
yeah,
And once you can, sometimes work is still a lot of fun and you like it and the
yeah,
pressure's off because you know you can retire if you want to.
yeah. It's if I had a job, then I would be able to retire. And I tell everybody when I grow up, I'm going to get a job. I promise. So, because I love what I do, I don't feel like I really work. I feel like I'm empowering other people.
Mhm.
And that is my mission, right? So, when we can have passion behind what we do, because, there are people who maybe their passion is what they're doing at their job, but they have a family and they don't give them the time that they deserve. And then one of the things is that you have to learn to, I guess, have that balance, right? Not that work balance thing that everybody talks about, 80/20, all this stuff, but I'm talking about the balance where you feel the joy no matter where you are,
Mhm.
right? Whether you're at work, you're with your family, because a lot of people say, yeah, I spend time with my family. Yeah, but are you answering emails or having calls come in and all this stuff, or are you really with your family? So there's that difference. And a lot of times you'll see a teenager not separate between their friends and work because they'll take their phones to work and they'll be, oh, I got to text my friend, but wait a minute, you're at work. So it's a difference of how do we balance that for real.
And one thing that I tell people, especially business owners, I say, and they're talking about retirement, I say, well, could you go on a 3 week vacation and not bring your computer?
Mm,
And they either laugh or run away scared because the idea is so foreign to them. I'm like, well, then you don't own a business. You have a business that owns you.
yeah,
And so if you want to spend quality time with your family, then you're able to do that if you actually own the business and it
right,
doesn't own you.
yeah, yeah,
Life's a wheel and it's filled with a bunch of pieces of pie, and one of those pieces is your business. But should be a lot of other pieces, and
should
you
be.
have to keep feeding each of those slices, or
Mhm.
the wheel doesn't roll right.
That's right. That's right. Plus, you can't be the hamster in that wheel either.
Right.
If you eaten all the pie,
Yeah. You are the pie.
you are the pie. So, I'm enjoying this conversation that you and I are having about business. And I have it up there, pinnacle-performance.com, right? What made you or possessed you to even start your own?
That's a great question. And to answer it indirectly, because I have started my own, people will ask me often. They say, I'm thinking of starting my own business. Do you think I should do it? My answer was no. They're like, what do you mean, no? You did it. I said, yeah, but if you have to ask me for kind of permission to go ahead and do this, then it's not
I love
important
that
enough to you.
answer.
You shouldn't do it. So once it's important enough to you, you won't need to ask someone if it's maybe should I do this or should I not. So, again, my mission of making the world a better place and having fun, which I have fun doing what I do,
Mm,
and be the best I can be. It I found a business that utilizes my strengths because I haven't always had jobs or businesses that really utilized what my strengths are. And once you find what your strengths are and you love to do it, that's where you should really focus. And if that means you should work for a certain company, great. If it means you should start your own business to accomplish all of those goals, great.
It's very interesting, and I love that you said no to them because you're right. When they're not 100% sure, but they need someone else's acceptance, then that business probably will not be good, right? Because their heart is not in it.
Right.
But a lot of people also go into business thinking, I'm not working for the man anymore. I'm my own boss. And then they don't realize how many hats they actually have to wear, right? You have to think
Yeah.
about the marketing, the sales, the cleaning, the upkeep, the rent. It depends on the business, right? If you have a physical
Yep.
store, I have a physical. My place is 10,000 square feet, but then that's one of my businesses. Then I have a wood shop, and so everything that goes into each business, there's many hats you have to wear. So
Right.
with that in mind, a lot of people go into business almost blind, right?
Yep.
They don't realize, they didn't do their due diligence to say, what does it take to run a business? A lot of people go into business because they want to be their own boss.
Right.
Is that the right approach?
It you say, I don't want to work for the man anymore. The man or woman or person who is in charge has so much responsibility, like you said. And I know there have been times when I'm not getting a paycheck so that I can pay everyone who works for me.
Mhm.
And people just don't realize that. When someone is new in business, or even if they have been at it for a while, I'll always have them do what I call a responsibilities chart. So people know what an org chart is, but they say, I'm not doing that because I'm only one person. I say, well,
Mm,
you still have all these responsibilities. It just so happens that your name goes into every slot.
every slot. That's
So
right.
if you drew out the whole map of all the responsibilities, then you can start thinking about, well, these are the ones that I would really like to not do. And then you can think about if you hire someone or can outsource it so that you can focus on what you do want to do. But until you've done that, you don't have a clear picture of all the different things that you have to do to run that business.
Right.
So it would be ideal if someone would do that before they started the business so that they didn't go in blind.
Yeah, exactly. I've heard of artists who wanted to, because there were the artists that would do portraits, right? And they were requested more and more and more often because they were amazing at it. So I'm not remembering the particular artist, but he realized that he was getting bombarded with requests, and he didn't have enough time in the day to create a portrait for every single request until he realized he can outsource certain parts of the painting,
Mm,
but he would give it the flair that would make it unique. So maybe somebody set up the canvas, somebody else did the background, somebody else did the hands or whatever, the dress, and then he would do the face, which was what his unique talent was. And when he was able to outsource, everybody still got an original, but he used the outsourcing to be able to satisfy the demand that was on him.
yep.
So, and
Nice.
people say, how can an artist do that? I just explained it.
Yep.
Or
And
even think
yeah,
of a sculpture, right? Somebody who's a famous sculpture. They don't have to go and mold the clay all the way through. They can have somebody else start it. They can have somebody start the clay. Somebody can mold it to a certain part, and then they can give it the finishing touches. So it's still unique. So
Yeah,
when we
they
think
get it
about
close.
outsourcing, my gosh, right? And you don't necessarily have to have somebody full time, right?
Mhm.
Because maybe that part of the job only requires 3 hours a day, or maybe twice a week. And so are you going to hire somebody full time, 40 hours a week for a job that only requires twice a week? Right? So it's how you structure your business, right?
Yep. And on the artist, the art should be so personalized and so from the artist, but having someone else help and get things started. Coaching is very personalized.
Oh yeah.
It's you that you're giving, but there's nothing wrong with having someone read a book ahead of time.
Oh yeah.
And then it's getting the stage set so that you're ready to do what only you can do.
Yeah, yeah. I totally agree. I think one of my favorite books is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill,
Yep, that's a
right?
good one.
It's a great book to get somebody who's to start thinking and to also do a mind shift, if you will, right? Because, and I don't know how many times I've read that book, but it's every time I read it, it's like a fresh. I'm like, I got to think about that. And then because you know what, we grow, and I said, we have a changing world, but we change all the time. Our perspective changes, the way we see things change. So, for example, you and I can watch the same show, the same speaker, and we can even get different messages, right?
Oh
So,
yeah.
sometimes as public speaking is how clear is our message, right?
And you and I may get different things out of a talk or a book or a movie, but even I will get something different out of it if I watch it 2 years later.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
think of the movies that I watched as a kid, like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Yep,
A
love it.
totally different movie as an adult than it was as a kid, but both are great.
And you know what? Johnny Depp did a great job with it. You know, one movie that I saw, and I used to work in a movie theater,
Oh,
right?
nice.
And I've seen a lot of movies, but one that still sticks out in my mind, and I know how many times I saw it in the movie theater. I've seen it outside of the movie theater since, and I have it. So every so often I go and I jump on it, is Gandhi. I saw that, and it's a 3 hours and change movie. It's not a short movie. I saw it in the movie theater 180 times.
Wow.
And can I tell you, I can't even tell you the words because to me it's like fascinating every time. The fact that this gentleman changed the minds of over 2 million people to do something, to make a change. It's just fascinating. It still is. And if somebody has not seen that movie, I highly recommend it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, some people just their personality and their persuasion and just the gravitas that they have is astounding.
Yeah.
And I've never met Gandhi, but
Me neither.
uh, sometimes someone will walk in a room and you'll see everyone just kind of leaning towards them,
Yeah.
and they have so much influence.
Mhm.
And it's amazing that someone can do what he did, and then it's a good example of how to influence people kindly, gently, and help them.
Yeah, in a positive way, unlike Hitler, right?
Right.
Who he did influence people, but listen, the guy was not what he was claiming everybody should be. He was short and had black hair, and he didn't have blue eyes. So when we think about business, what is your biggest takeaway that you have learned or conceptualized yourself?
In business overall,
Yes.
I think what we talked about earlier, where I said that my goal is to make it so that people have what they need,
Mm.
whether that's from me or not, really goes a long way because it absolutely shifts the goal from selling to helping, and you're doing it in a way that also sells.
Right.
So it to me that was a pretty fundamental change in the way that I think about interacting with potential clients.
Mhm. You know, one of the things, and thank you for sharing that, and I agree 100% with you on that. One of the things that has totally changed was someone's word in business, right? A handshake has
Hmm.
changed. I'm old fashioned. I know I'm not 300 years old, but I still believe in my word is my code or my rule. If I tell you I'm going to do something, you can trust that I'll be there. Um, and if I say I'm going to do something, you can trust that I will do it, or at least do my best to try to do it. But now we are no longer in that phase of where people trust one another. It's all
Hmm.
contracts. You have to sign this before you can do that. And sometimes the contracts are 5,000 pages long, right? And I know because I've signed leases to my places, right?
Hmm.
And even though I hired a lawyer, my lawyer didn't do a good job. So I fired him and I did my own leases. And I no longer use a lawyer. And I know some lawyers out there going, you need a lawyer. True. But when I taught myself how to do leases, right? So, for example, I wanted to be able to accomplish something by signing this lease. And I thought it was going to be straightforward. And when I sent it to my lawyer, he said, oh, it's good to go. And I'm like, did you read the lease? I said, they want me this, that, and the other. And if these things happen, I'm going to get hurt. So I said, you're not protecting me. Oh, and I highlighted everything. I said, these things have to change. And it was all, lingo I didn't understand. And I said, okay, so if I don't understand these things, why don't I understand it? So then I made it my business to understand it. And therefore, he sent me back the lease. I changed it. And then I highlighted it again and I sent it back. I said, how about these things? And then, fine. So he and I went back and forth. And then once I was happy with it, I sent it to the landlord. And then the landlord said, we need these things. I said, okay. And then it took back and forth until we were both 100% happy. But that doesn't really happen without someone trying to trick someone else
Yep.
into something, right? So how is it that we can still do business and have that bond, that word of my word is my bond?
Yeah, I think a lot of it has to do with what your goals are. And this isn't exactly on the same topic, but when I debate with someone, I'm good no matter how the debate comes out. If I win it, great, I won it because
Mm,
I'm really competitive and I like to win.
right, right.
If I lose it, great, because I learned something.
Mhm.
And my goal of, getting into a debate, try never to make it an argument, is to have learning happen.
Mhm.
Whether I'm learning, you're learning, we're both learning.
Yeah,
And if you, I again, a lot of people don't think that that's my goal and they don't believe me. And so they will turn it into an argument if they can. But I have to express over and over my goal is to increase learning through this.
yeah,
And, but there's a lot of people out there who aren't that way. So it's a balance.
yeah.
You have to trust and be trusting to a degree.
Yeah, no, to a degree. Correct,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah, unfortunately, we do live in the age where people go back on their word,
Hmm.
right? So I guess that's why there are contracts. There are
Yeah.
things. I mean, listen, with everything we do nowadays, if I want to turn on the electric, I have to go to the electric company. I have to sign a contract, right? I have to sign an agreement. But one thing I did learn from contracts and so forth is that you need to learn the lingo,
Hmm.
right? Because even though you're signing a simple contract, it's still business. right? So you need to learn the lingo to be in business. And so what language must we really learn when we talk about business?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So if you are talking engineering and
Mhm.
I don't know engineering, do I take your word for it?
Yeah, again, it's a fine line. A skill that many engineers in particular do not have is the ability to boil things down
Mm,
and give what the essence of the thing is. A
right.
lot of them, not all, but a lot of them really like to describe every detail, and it makes it so that no one really understands it at all. Um, yeah, trust has to be built, and so yes, there's contracts, but you have to find a way to build trust with people by doing things like keeping your word. Every time you
Mhm,
say you're going to be there, eventually people will stop questioning whether you're going to be there.
right.
And I try my best to undercommit as much as possible. And it drives some of my friends crazy. They say, "Hey, do you want to come over Friday?" I say, "Well, there's about a 50% chance I can make it." They're like, "Why don't you just say you're coming?" I'm like, "Because I don't want to disappoint you.
Yeah.
If I ever say I'm going to be there, I'm going to be there."
Mhm, right.
So it takes time though to build that trust.
Mhm. It is definitely about trust. Let's talk for a minute, not on business, but on family.
Okay.
1 of 10.
Yes.
You decided to write a book.
Yes.
Let's take a look at your book. Little kids. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be very honest. I want a copy, but I want it signed.
Great. I'm taking a note.
Perfect. So, how does someone pick up your book? Do they go to pinnacleperformance.com?
The easiest is go to Amazon
Okay,
and just type in my last name. So if
got
you
it.
type in Jeremy Doran, it should come up.
Perfect.
And
So,
soon in the next couple of days, we'll have a web page called thelittlekids.us,
love it. Love it.
but it's not quite up and running yet.
Okay, cool. It's a work in progress. I love it.
Yeah.
So, you decided to write that book, but why?
Some of it was because we told the story so often and people were always so fascinated by it that they would ask us more questions, and a lot of people said, "Oh boy, they could do a study on you guys," because it's that just the interactions were so different than what most people experience. So
Mm,
we want to get them down on paper.
gotcha. That's cool.
And the great thing about it was the act of doing it was wonderfully reminiscent for us because it was getting us to really engage and remember all those things.
Mhm.
And at the end of each, there's 13 chapters, and each one is just a different story of things that happened. And then my sister and I would write our perspective on that story and what we learned from it and how it affects us. And there's a ton of ways in which my business life is affected by the things that I learned growing up in that situation.
Wow, cool. So, did you write the book with your siblings?
One of my sisters, so I'm number 10, she's number 9.
Oh, look at that.
So we corroborated on what the stories are. I wrote the stories. We both wrote our perspectives. We have a little description of each of the members of the family, and
Mm,
so that people know who we're
that's neat.
talking about. And it was just so much fun, and I learned so much from doing it, and I hope other people do as well.
So let me ask you, what is the age difference between the number one child and you?
16 years.
Oh, there you go. Okay.
Which is not much. The first 6 kids are all less than 1 year apart.
Mm.
And then my parents started slowing down.
Darn it. So, when we think about in the old days, families were a lot bigger,
Hmm.
right? And was it in Japan or China that you could not legally have more than what, 2 kids?
Yeah, China for a long time.
Yeah. And, imagine if your parents lived in China, oh my gosh, you wouldn't be here.
Yeah. Or we'd be 5 families.
There you go, five families. You'd find your way in, wouldn't you?
Somehow.
When we think about family, how connected are you guys, all of you?
Like as I said, we try to get together for family reunions. For a while, our family reunions were when someone got married.
Mm,
And then everyone got married. So then we turned 50th birthdays into a family reunion. And now some of the nieces and nephews are getting married.
right.
But Zoom has been pretty helpful for us in getting together on a much more regular basis.
That's
Um,
awesome.
we're mostly up and down the East Coast. So there's small groups of us that will get together more often. But it's so great when everyone's together because we
Mm,
all have that common experience that we can tell other people about, but then we don't even have to explain anything to each other. We all just get it.
yeah, I got you. Let me ask you, with so many of you, is there drama? I know in my family there's drama. You
Sometimes.
smiled.
I want to hear some of your family drama
Oh
stories.
my gosh, how many days do you have?
Hopefully a lot.
Well, of
Um,
course.
yeah, there are some combinations of people that are more likely to cause drama.
Mm,
Um, Sam and I, Sam's the number 9.
right.
We are two that have almost no drama for the most part. We we help be kind of glue when there's other people around sometimes.
Gotcha. Gotcha. That's cool.
Yeah.
You know, I'm closest with my oldest sister, right? And to be honest with you, she kind of raised me.
Yep.
So it was pretty interesting, that, my oldest sister, she's like, I changed your diapers. I'm like, okay.
I get that a lot.
You do too, right?
Oh yeah.
Pretty interesting, right? So the dynamic of family and business, is it closely related, would you say?
When I am coaching people in business about communication and specifically conflict management, almost every story I have comes from my family.
Mm,
And, there's so many different personality types, and sometimes it's when people have the exact same personality trait that causes problems, and sometimes it's when they have the opposite traits
right.
that it causes problems. So I have just so many examples. It's a rich treasure of examples to pull from.
That's cool. That's cool. Because you know what? When you think about it, and you talked about your mom, strong woman
Hmm.
and you said she ruled. I
Yes.
love that. But you probably learned so much business concepts from her. Tell me
Yes.
I'm right or I'm wrong.
Absolutely. That one topic, I'll tell you a quick story. And it was before I was even born, but I've heard it so much that I know it
Mm,
as if I was there. They were at another friend's house for dinner, and there were 3 families, and there were probably 7 of the Dorans there, which is us.
mhm,
And the others had any number of people. And the person who's hosting the party said, okay, it's time for everyone to sit. And my mother just said out loud, okay, it's time to sit. And all the kids were running around, and the 7 Dorns just sat down where they were and looked at her to see what was coming next. So
wow. Well, that's
in
cool.
in crazy situations, she had that kind of control. But I
Mm,
talked earlier about the fact that she let most things go, and I wish that more leaders and businesses controlled what they absolutely have to control, and then let people be creative,
oh yeah.
because they're going to come up with so many great business ideas and great things that the leader wouldn't. And so many leaders try to control every aspect of what's going on in the business. And I wish they could have seen how my mom controlled what had to be and let people explore the things that it's okay to explore on.
Oh, I love that. Thinking of a family dynamic, right? Sometimes the smallest child will say something and somebody will put them off, and meanwhile that child was right. Right. And the same thing in business, it could be the person sweeping the floors who has an idea and they'll shoot them down Meanwhile, it was an amazing idea that could have made the company millions,
Yep.
right? So it's listen. It's I. You know what? I think it's having your ear to the ground, right? To listen to every little thing that when you're a business owner, or even if you're a big corporation, is to have many ears listening for ideas that can affect the business, the way you even do business. Because we talked earlier about Blockbuster,
Hmm.
right? They were not listening. And guess who was, and who's still around,
Yep.
and who's even, they're not just a streaming service, right? Netflix. They are creating their own shows,
Hmm.
right? So it's huge when they think that there's a little part that they could have stayed in. They could have stayed in their lane, right, if you will. And a lot of businesses stay in their lane, and that's all we're gonna do. But meanwhile, somebody says, "Hey, look at over here. We can go over here, and we can make this lane that much wider," right? But a lot of people don't do that. Why do you
Yeah.
think?
It, but that also is a fine line.
It is a fine line.
Um, and that's going, but I talk about the personal mission statement, but every business should have a real business mission statement.
Correct.
Most of them are just marketing.
Hmm.
But if someone has a real mission statement for their business, then when an opportunity comes up, they can decide if it fits within their mission or not. Because a lot of times companies will see this opportunity over there, and yeah, it's a great opportunity where they can make a lot of money in the short term, but it doesn't fit what their actual mission of their business is. And so that's going to fail eventually, and it's going to help bring down the rest of the business. So
Hmm.
it you have to listen, but then you also have to evaluate.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. A lot of people are not going to like for what I'm going to say next, but some people still use AOL mail, right?
Yep.
And it's funny because when I ask somebody for the mail and they'll go AOL, whatever, and I'm like, whoa, you got
Really?
to step up into the now, right? But
Yeah.
that's just my perception. So I noticed the other day that Yahoo is trying to do a comeback.
Ah.
Yeah. So they're coming out with a new platform. They're doing all these things. They're revamping their Yahoo Mail, all their Yahoo stuff, right? So let's, I guess time will tell if they actually will be able to compete with the giant, because everybody, not only is it mail, but they're getting into so many different aspects of creating phones. And you know who I'm talking about. Phones, different platforms. You can do so much. This company didn't stay in their lane. They expanded their lane,
Hmm.
right? So now they're running multiple streams, and people know them by one word, right? So
It's a verb now.
it's is it in the dictionary now?
Probably. Oh, look.
Jeremy, this has been a blast. Thank you so much.
Oh, it's been a great opportunity for me.
What do you think, or what is one thing that you would like to share with someone who's either going to consider going into business for themselves, or who is starting to work new business? Their first day is next week,
They're starting their own new business.
or they're starting a new job.
Okay. Let's be true to yourself and keep the end in mind. So when you think about your business mission and your personal mission, and you think about how to get there, be true to that, because
Mm,
it's very easy to, especially if you're in a job and someone offers you a promotion, most people just take it because it's a promotion and it's stepping up a ladder, but is that ladder on the wall that you want to get to the top of? If you can look at an opportunity and say no to it because you know that it's not in your wheelhouse and it's not where you want to go, that's where everyone needs to get to. And it's not easy, but whether it's starting a business or getting a promotion, really knowing where you want to go eventually is the key.
Yeah. It's very funny that you said sometimes don't accept the position right away. Think it through. Because I saw something where somebody was offered the position of manager, and I think they were just working in some restaurant, and they said no. And the owner was shocked. But it's more money, it's more this. He goes, yeah, but I want a life.
Yeah.
I don't want to come in early or work every holiday or all this. So I see what the manager's going through. I
Yep.
don't want that.
Not everything's worth that extra money.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, my friend. It's been a total pleasure, and I'm so happy you and I are connected.
Me as well. Thank you very much.
All right. Enjoy. Have an amazing rest of your day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye bye.